We bought a house. It wasn't just four walls and a roof. It was the culmination of years of saving, planning, and whispering late-night dreams into the darkness of our cramped apartment. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, for your support means a lot to us. Now back to my story. For years, we had endured landlords who raised rents without notice, neighbors who argued through paper-thin walls, and the endless hum of traffic that never let us sleep. Now at last we had something real, something ours. The neighborhood looked like something pulled from a glossy magazine cover. Wide, tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, children's bicycles abandoned on driveways, and porches decorated with flower pots that seemed too bright, too alive to be real. The air even smelled different, crisp, floral, with a sweetness that reminded me of spring, even though summer had long ended. "This is it," my partner whispered as we pulled into the driveway of our new home. Her eyes shimmered with wonder. "This is finally it." I wanted to believe her. We hadn't even unpacked half our boxes when the doorbell rang. Standing on the porch was a small group of neighbors, led by a man in his late 50s. His hair was silver at the temples, his suit crisp but casual, his smile wide and practiced. He had the air of someone who had shaken thousands of hands before mine, and I felt his grip linger just a second longer than necessary. "Welcome," he said warmly. "We're so thrilled to have you join our community." Behind him, three other neighbors, two women and a man, beamed as though they'd been waiting all day for this moment. In their arms, they carried a wicker basket wrapped in cellophane and ribbon. "A little something to make you feel at home," the silver-haired man continued. "Cookies, wine, and a tradition." My partner's face lit up as she pulled away the cellophane. Inside, nestled among the gifts, was a thick cream-colored recipe card. The calligraphy looked hand-done, elegant and looping across the page. At the top, in bold letters, it read, "The Community Stew." I frowned as I scanned the recipe. Alongside the usual suspects, beef chuck, carrots, potatoes were strange additions. A spoonful of soil from your new garden. The water from the first rainfall of the month. A clipping from a plant that brings you joy. My partner laughed softly. "That's Quirky." "It's tradition," the man said, his smile unwavering. "Every family here makes it once a season. It keeps us connected, keeps the neighborhood strong." There was something about the way he said it, so calm, so absolute, that made my skin prickle. But my partner clutched the recipe like a treasure. She had always been the joiner, the one who made friends effortlessly, while I preferred to keep my distance. "Well, we'll definitely try it," she said. The neighbors clapped their hands together in delight. The man's smile widened another fraction, but his eyes lingered on me. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw something there. Not warmth, not kindness, something deeper, something watchful. And just as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. "Welcome home," he said again, before turning and leading his group down the perfect, flower-lined walkway. I stood in the doorway, holding the basket, staring down at the recipe card. It was supposed to be harmless, just a tradition, but the ink on that cream-colored card seemed to hum in my hand, as if the words themselves were alive. And though I didn't know it yet, the moment I let them step through our door, we were no longer just homeowners. We were part of something else. Something we could never escape. The recipe card sat on our kitchen counter for 3 days before we finally gave in. At first, I laughed it off. A spoonful of soil. Rainwater, it felt like something out of a children's storybook, not a serious neighborhood tradition. But my partner kept nudging me, her voice lilting with amusement. "Come on, it's cute. Let's just try it. It'll help us fit in." Fitting in had never been high on my list of priorities, but she looked so eager. And the last thing I wanted was to start our life here by being those neighbors, the ones who rejected the welcome gift. So Saturday morning, we set about collecting ingredients. I dug a small spoonful of dirt from the garden, a patch of soil that had looked barren when we first moved in, but now seemed inexplicably richer, darker, almost moist with unseen life. I brushed off the thought and sealed it in a jar. That afternoon, the sky opened with a soft drizzle, and we rushed outside to catch rainwater in a glass pitcher, laughing like children as the drops splashed our hands and faces. "See," my partner said, grinning, "it's fun." We clipped a leaf from the pothos plant she'd brought from our old apartment, the only greenery that had ever survived her forgetful watering schedule. I could swear the leaf curled slightly in her hand, as if resisting being cut. And for the final touch, we bought a packet of star anise, a spice neither of us had ever used before. Its star-shaped pods looked alien sitting in the palm of my hand, their points sharp, their aroma oddly sweet. That evening, the pot bubbled on the stove, steam fogging the windows. The stew smelled Unusual, not unpleasant, but layered in a way I couldn't define. Earthy and floral, rich yet strangely sweet. When it was finally ready, we sat at the table, bowls steaming before us. My partner's eyes danced with excitement. "To our new home," she said, raising her spoon. I hesitated. The dark broth shimmered under the kitchen light, flecks of herbs and vegetables drifting in lazy circles. The thought of the soil, the dirt, still made my stomach twist. But she was watching me, waiting. So I took a bite. The flavor hit me like nothing I'd tasted before. It was warm, savory, comforting. Yet there was an undertone, something deep, earthy, almost primal, that pulled at the edges of my mind. "This is good," I admitted, surprised. My partner smiled, taking another spoonful. "Good, it's amazing." We ate in silence, spoon after spoon, until the bowls were empty. And that's when it happened. A warmth spread through my chest, slow at first, then flooding outward to my fingertips. My shoulders relaxed, my heartbeat slowed. I looked at her, at the way the lamplight softened her face, and I was overcome with love so powerful, it nearly brought tears to my eyes. Not just for her, for the house, for the neighbors, for the smiling man who had handed us the recipe. It wasn't just happiness, it was belonging. For the first time in my life, the nagging cynicism, the voice that questioned everything, was quiet. I belonged, and I didn't know then, but that was exactly the point. From that night forward, everything felt different. The stew had left a lingering warmth in my chest, like an ember that never cooled. Each morning, I woke with a strange sense of clarity, a brightness I hadn't felt in years. The exhaustion of moving, the stress of mortgages, the wear and tear of city life, it all melted away. And it wasn't just me, my partner glowed. Her laughter came easier, her patience stretched longer. We found ourselves talking late into the night, not about bills or stress, but about dreams, about the future, about how lucky we were to have found this neighborhood. It was like falling in love all over again. The neighborhood itself seemed to bask in that same glow. We went to block parties, where everyone smiled as though they'd been waiting just for us. Potlucks where tables overflowed with food so fresh and abundant it looked staged. Kids darted between tables, giggling, never once squabbling or crying. The air was filled with music and laughter, not a single sour note. But what struck me most was the gardens. When we moved in, our patch of lawn had been dull, yellowing, the soil stubborn and unyielding. But now, only weeks later, it was transformed. Roses burst into bloom, thick and red, their petals so soft they looked unreal. Tomatoes ripened overnight, fat and glossy. Even the grass seemed greener than I remembered, lush and thick without a single weed. "Must be the soil here," one neighbor said with a laugh when I asked. "Best in the state, everything just grows." It should have been wonderful, it was wonderful. And yet, my old cynicism wasn't entirely dead. Sometimes late at night, I'd sit on the porch and just watch. The street was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but staged quiet. Like a movie set after the director had yelled cut. Every house had lights glowing warmly inside, shadows moving across curtains, laughter drifting faintly through open windows. But not once did I hear an argument. Not once did a child cry. Not once did I see a single ambulance, a single police car, a single delivery truck pulling into the street. And no one ever left. I asked once casually at a potluck, "So do people ever move away?" The silver-haired man, the one who had welcomed us, placed a warm hand on my shoulder and smiled. Why would anyone want to leave? The others around us laughed softly, as though it were a silly question. My partner squeezed my hand, her expression serene as if she agreed. But their eyes lingered on me too long. That night, lying in bed, I told myself I was overthinking, that I'd lived in cities too long, where chaos and conflict were constant. Maybe this was just what peace looked like. But deep down I knew perfection was never perfect, and there was something just beneath the surface that I wasn't seeing yet. It happened on a Tuesday morning. The air was still, the sky cloudless, the kind of morning where you expect nothing more dramatic than the mail arriving late. I was sipping coffee on the porch when I saw the group gathering at the far end of the street. Neighbors moved with quiet efficiency, their voices hushed, their faces solemn but not shocked. That was the first thing that unsettled me. By the time I reached them, I already knew something was wrong. The silver-haired man stood at the center, his smile subdued, his voice gentle. "Mr. Callahan has passed," he announced, peacefully in his sleep. I blinked. Mr. Callahan was the oldest man on the street. I'd seen him trimming his hedges just days ago. Stooped but spry, his eyes bright. He had been one of the first to wave at us when we moved in. The group bowed their heads in a brief, almost synchronized silence, There were no tears, no wails, no breaking voices, just calm, respectful nods. We'll hold a memorial this weekend. The silver-haired man continued. In the park, no need to trouble his family. They wouldn't understand our ways. We'll take care of everything. I glanced around. No one questioned it. No one mentioned calling the coroner, or the police, or even an ambulance. It was as if his death was an errand to be handled, nothing more. Shouldn't someone, I started, my voice faltering, notify someone, his children, relatives? The man's eyes settled on me, kind but firm. His family is here, we are his family. He wouldn't want outsiders involved. It's better this way, cleaner. The way he said cleaner made my stomach turn. The memorial was simple, almost rehearsed. A circle of neighbors gathered in the park, each holding flowers cut from their immaculate gardens. There were words of respect, stories told, laughter shared, but no funeral, no burial. And just like that, life went on. A week later, the house that had been Mr. Callahan's was filled again. A young couple moved in, a man and a woman with bright eyes and nervous smiles, carrying boxes that looked almost too light. I stood at my window and watched as the welcoming committee arrived. The silver-haired man at the front, the basket in his arms, cookies, wine in the card, always the card. My partner joined me at the window, her hand slipping into mine. They're lucky, she said softly. They'll love it here. Her tone was warm, serene, utterly sincere. But all I could think was how quickly we had replaced him, how seamless it all was, as though he'd never existed. The new family smiled, accepted the basket, and stepped into their new home. I could almost taste the stew already simmering in their kitchen. And for the first time, the warmth in my chest curdled into something else. Fear. It was well past midnight when the sound of an engine woke me. At first, I thought I'd dreamed it. The neighborhood was always quiet. So quiet it sometimes felt staged, like silence pressed into place. But then I heard it again, the low, panicked rev of a car. Curious, I slipped from bed and moved to the window. Down the street, the new neighbor, the husband, was loading bags into his car. His movements were frantic, jerky, his head snapping left and right as though he expected someone to leap from the shadows. He dropped a suitcase, cursed under his breath, and stuffed it into the trunk with shaking hands. My breath caught. He wasn't just leaving, he was fleeing. From what? From who? The porch light of his house remained dark. No wife in sight, no neighbors gathered around. Just him, a man desperate to escape. He slammed the driver's side door shut, tires squealing as he tore down the street. The sound of the engine echoed through the perfect rows of houses before fading into silence. And then, as though the night had reset itself, everything went still again. The next morning, his wife stood on their porch, her face pale, her voice trembling as she told the neighbors he was missing. I woke up and he was gone, his clothes, his things, everything. I don't understand. The neighborhood sprang into action with startling efficiency. Search parties were formed before noon, flyers printed and taped to lampposts. Neighbors fanned out in pairs, their flashlights bobbing in the woods, their voices calling his name. But their faces were too calm. They laughed softly as they searched, their conversations drifting toward recipes, gardens, children. They combed the woods with careful diligence, but their eyes carried no urgency. It was a performance, an echo of concern without the weight of fear. That evening, the silver-haired man called a neighborhood meeting in the park. We gathered in a circle, the air thick with feigned grief. I have terrible news, he announced, his voice heavy with practiced sorrow. Our friend was found this afternoon. It seems he lost control of his car on the mountain road. A tragic accident. He'd been drinking heavily. The sheriff's office has been notified. The neighbors gasped on cue, their voices rising in murmurs of shock. But their eyes, calm, steady, told a different story. I raised my hand, my voice sharp in the quiet. Wait, shouldn't there be an investigation? A body? Don't the police need to? The man cut me off with a patient smile. That won't be necessary, son. We've already taken care of it. He's at peace now, buried in his own garden. Where he belongs, it's better this way, quieter. A ripple of agreement passed through the crowd. I stared at them, my stomach churning. Buried him themselves. That's not legal, I muttered. My partner's hand clamped on my arm, her nails digging in. Stop. She whispered, her voice was steady, almost too steady. They know what's best, don't be difficult. Her eyes met mine, calm and glassy, like the surface of a still pond. And in that moment I realized, she believed it. All of it. The next few days blurred together, a haze of smiles and casseroles. Neighbors drifted to the new widow's porch with flowers and food, offering comfort with serene, unwavering patience. Their words were tender, their embraces genuine, but their calm unsettled me. How could they be so composed when a man had just died, when they had buried him themselves? Each evening, the neighborhood gathered in the park. Officially, it was to support the widow, but it felt more like ritual. The silver-haired man always spoke first, his voice soft and steady, like a preacher. "We are a family," he told us one night, his eyes sweeping the crowd. "We care for one another. We protect one another. The outside world does not understand what we have here, and it never will. We must preserve it." Heads nodded in unison. Smiles spread across faces, serene and glassy. I shifted uncomfortably on the bench. It sounded less like comfort, and more like indoctrination. I opened my mouth to speak, but my partner's hand squeezed mine hard. Her nails bit into my skin, her smile fixed at the corners of her mouth. "Don't," she whispered. Afterward, back at home, I couldn't hold my tongue. "You heard what he said," I muttered, pacing the kitchen. "They don't want outsiders involved. They buried that man like it was nothing. Don't you see how wrong this is?" My partner calmly washed the dishes, her movements slow and rhythmic. "It's not wrong," she said softly. "It's different. They're protecting us. This community is special. You'll understand soon." I stared at her, searching for the spark I used to see in her eyes, the sharp wit, the playful skepticism, but all I found was placid serenity. "Special," I echoed. "It's insane." She turned, drying her hands, and for the first time her smile faltered. "Maybe you're the one who doesn't belong. Maybe you're too stubborn to see the gift we've been given." The words landed like a stone in my gut. That night I lay awake listening to her slow, even breaths beside me. I should have felt comforted. Instead, dread pooled in my stomach. Something was slipping away from me. Not just the neighborhood, not just my sanity. Third, sleep became impossible. Every night, the warmth that had once wrapped around me like a blanket now felt like a weight pressing down. Suffocating, my partner slept soundly beside me, her breathing even, her face serene, too serene. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, until finally the silence became unbearable. I slipped from bed, pulled on a jacket, and crept into the night. The street was silent, as always. The houses glowed faintly, their windows lit with warm lamplight. Shadows moved behind curtains, families, couples, children, each one perfectly content, perfectly at peace. I kept my head down and walked quickly, every crunch of gravel under my shoes sounding too loud, too obvious. When I reached the house at the far end of the block, the house of the man who had disappeared, I paused. Its windows were dark, the lawn was immaculate, trimmed within an inch of perfection, but the air around it felt wrong, still waiting. The back window slid open easily, as if it had been left that way on purpose. I climbed inside. The house was neat, staged almost, except for the office. Papers were scattered across the desk and floor. A half-packed suitcase lay open, clothes spilling out like a frozen scream. And on the desk, I found the journal. The handwriting was jagged, frantic. The last pages were filled with scrawls that seemed almost to tremble off the paper. My eyes darted across the words, my pulse quickening. "It's a fungus, a complex mycelial organism I've never seen before. Highly symbiotic, alters brain chemistry, suppresses suspicion, fosters communal love and loyalty. Inoculation through ingestion. The soil is saturated with spores. The stew is the carrier." My mouth went dry. I flipped to the next page. "It connects us through the gardens, through the root systems, a vast underground network. We aren't neighbors, we are parts of something larger. The colony uses us, keeps us docile, keeps us home." My hands shook as I turned the page. "It defends itself, like toxoplasma with rats. It changes behavior, makes you love the colony, makes you protect it at all costs. That's why no one leaves, that's why no one questions. I have to get out before it's too late, before my wife." The entry cut off mid-sentence. Ink smeared as if the pen had been ripped from his hand. I dropped the journal, my blood cold. It all made sense, the perfect gardens, the glowing health, the unshakable calm. We weren't living in a neighborhood. We were living in a body, and the stew was its bloodstream. I ran home with the journal clutched to my chest. My breath ragged in the cold night air. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle of leaves like a warning. My mind screamed with one thought: I have to get my partner out before it's too late. The house was quiet when I slipped inside. Too quiet, I expected to find her asleep in bed. The blankets pulled to her chin, her breathing steady. But the bedroom was empty. A faint glow came from the kitchen. The smell hit me first, earthy, floral, sweet in a way that made my stomach turn. The stew. I froze in the doorway. She sat at the table, her face calm. spooning mouthfuls of the dark broth into her mouth. Her eyes lifted slowly to mine, and for the briefest moment, I thought I saw the woman I loved. But no, her gaze was glassy, placid, unwavering. "What are you doing?" I hissed. Rushing forward, I grabbed the bowl from her hands and hurled it into the sink. Ceramic shattered, broth splattering across the counter. "You can't eat that. It's not food. It's a drug. It's controlling us." She looked at me with something that cut deeper than anger. Pity. Calm, pitying disappointment. "You're being ridiculous," she said softly, her voice smooth as silk. I was just feeling a little disconnected. "The stew helps. It always helps. You need it too." "No," my voice cracked. "Don't you understand? They killed that man. They buried him like it was nothing. The whole neighborhood, it's alive. It's a fungus. It's using us." Her smile didn't falter. Only her tone changed, flat cold. "You're being unneighborly." I took a step back. Something in her eyes had hardened, turned resolute. "You're paranoid," she continued. "You need to accept the gift, be part of the whole." She stood slowly, her chair scraping the floor. For a heartbeat, I thought she was going to get a glass of water, maybe wipe the counter. Then her hand went to the knife block. My blood ran cold. She pulled out the largest chef's knife, its blade catching the kitchen light. She turned toward me, her expression not furious, not unhinged but calm, serene. Her voice was almost a whisper, steady and reverent. "If you will not accept the gift of the earth, then you are a disease, and we must protect the body." She stepped forward, the knife low at her side, her movements deliberate. I stumbled back, heart hammering. The woman I loved, my partner. My anchor was gone. In her place stood something else, something claimed. And with every step she took toward me, the truth seared deeper into my bones. If I stayed another moment, she would kill me. I didn't think, I ran. Her footsteps followed, steady and deliberate on the hardwood floor, the knife glinting in her hand. My heart thundered as I tore through the living room, yanking the front door open so hard it slammed against the wall. Cold night air hit me like a slap. I bolted barefoot across the porch and down the walkway, my breath sharp in the silence. Behind me, the door creaked open again. I didn't dare look back. Keys, car, escape. Those were the only thoughts in my head. My hands shook as I fumbled the keys from my pocket and dove into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life, headlights cutting across the too-perfect street. For a heartbeat, relief surged through me. Then the trees moved. At first, I thought it was a trick of my headlights. But no, the great oaks lining the street were bending, their thick branches lowering like arms, knitting together overhead. The exit ahead narrowed, shadows twisting into a cage. No, 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 no. I slammed the accelerator. The car leapt forward, tires squealing. For a moment, I thought I could make it until the engine sputtered, coughed, died. Panic clawed my chest. I twisted the key again and again, but the ignition only clicked uselessly. Smoke curled from the hood. I threw the door open, desperate. My phone's flashlight beam caught the engine, and my stomach turned to ice. Roots, thick pale roots writhing like snakes, had forced their way through the engine block. Green vines curled around the pistons, choking the machine to death. The neighborhood wasn't letting me go. I stumbled back, tripping on the asphalt, then turned and ran. My lungs burned. My legs screamed, but I forced them to move. Behind me, the groaning sound rose, the creak of bending wood, the grinding of roots tearing through soil. Branches swept low, clawing at the air above me. Cracks splintered across the pavement as roots burst upward, snaking for my ankles. The road ahead narrowed further, the canopy closing in. I could see it, the bridge, the single lifeline connecting this suburban nightmare to the outside world. Its lamps glowed warm and artificial in the distance, a beacon in the suffocating dark. I pushed harder, every step a prayer. The gap between the branches shrank, closing like the jaws of a trap. Roots scraped against my shoes, tugging at my heels. With a final, desperate scream, I leapt. Concrete scraped my palms as I sprawled onto the bridge's entrance. My chest heaved, my knees bleeding, and then silence. I turned back. The road was empty, the trees stood still, their branches lifted high and peaceful, as if they had never moved. My car was gone, no roots, no vines, just stillness. But I knew the truth. The neighborhood had tried to claim me, and it had claimed her. I didn't stop running until the lights of the bridge swallowed me whole. The second I crossed onto its concrete span, everything changed. The groaning of wood, the shuddering of branches, the grinding of roots gone. The night was still again, broken only by the hum of distant highway traffic. I collapsed against the railing, chest heaving, every muscle in my body trembling. My mind screamed that it was over, that I was safe, but my heart refused to believe it. I kept staring back into the darkness of the neighborhood, waiting for the trees to lunge again, for roots to spill across the bridge. But nothing came. The cul-de-sac lay in silence, bathed in the golden glow of its street lamps. A perfect postcard of suburban life. My car, my house, my partner, all swallowed in its quiet embrace. By dawn, I was miles away, slumped in a motel bed. The journal clutched in my hands. I should have called the police, but what could I say? That my wife tried to kill me with a kitchen knife because of a stew. That the soil itself was alive, binding an entire neighborhood into a single, monstrous body. They'd lock me in a padded cell before they'd believe me. I stared at the ceiling, replaying her face in my mind. The softness of her smile, the serenity in her eyes, the way she'd whispered, "If you will not accept the gift, you are a disease." She wasn't mine anymore. She belonged to them. I left her there, and that guilt is worse than the fear. Now, even hundreds of miles away, I feel it, the warmth in my chest that never truly left. Some nights when I close my eyes, I taste the stew again, earthy, sweet, comforting, and for a fleeting second I long to go back. To belong, because maybe that's the cruelest part of all. The neighborhood doesn't just keep you. It calls you, and one day I fear I'll answer. Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories.